Perhaps the next thing that we'd like to address is to go a bit deeper into your own personal experiences. And at the intersection, obviously, of your own personal experience and the work that you're doing. So, Andrew, the question is for you. You come from a law background, but you've been obsessed with intangibles for the past 20 years. And the objective is to use intangibles as a force for good. What got you to connect those dots, and how did you connect them?
I always tell my stories chronologically. Yeah, so I'll try there, because you know there's that expression, you can never connect the dots going forward, you only connect them going backwards. So I as a lawyer, you love definitions. You know, every contract starts with the following words mean the following things, and you go to the area of intangibles, and there isn't anything at all. People say patent or patent, you go, which one is it? Can you just make a choice? And so I walked in the whole area of intangibles, and I kept thinking, why does everybody use the same words to mean different things and the opposite? And so I began with just this idea of, well, we got to codify this whole domain and actually work out what means what. So I started to create a taxonomy. I learned about taxonomies. I go into the Linnaean Society. That was one of the highlights ever of my life. And then, you know, I did this for, I then, you know, we sold a business I was in a general counsel of, and then actually I set my own business up way ahead of the curve. It was quite successful, but it was pretty brutal. And then I had my first burnout in 2010 when I realized I was trying to do far too many things, and I was a lawyer and a father of 5 and an unsustainable lifestyle and blah, blah, blah. And then it's trying to follow my obsession for intangibles. And Alexandra and I've had these sort of conversations that life storms come along, you know, for everybody, really. The storms of life come at some point in time. And then what you have to do is kind of see those as an invitation that they're not actually a, let's go back to how things were before. They're a, well, let's go and try a different way. So I had them in my second and my third storms before I realized that actually this wasn't really the idea to keep going backwards. Actually, I had to sort of have the courage to go forwards. And that was actually really, really hard at the time with a lot of personal problems. But then I found Steve Chalk. Steve runs Oasis Foundation, which is a charity and a set of basically an amazing foundation based in Waterloo in London. And I arrived in London and my life had fallen apart, and Steve put me back together again, basically through love and inclusion and learning all about, I think, what really is in, to me, the sort of value of humanity. Anyway, the story keeps on going then, that I have a few more storms and then eventually, you know, begin to realize that actually this whole journey I've been on for a long point of time sort of connects itself. I just give one example and I'll be quiet, which is Oasis have a very simple way of thinking about value, and it says it's called beliefs into behaviors. And it goes, beliefs can't be faked. They are what they are. Your beliefs will give rise, your beliefs will surface in your behaviors and will become concrete in your decisions. Or put it another way around, you can reverse engineer your true beliefs from the decisions you make. Now, that was actually the plug-in to the whole value creation system that I'd never really got before until that point in time. And then it makes you realize, actually, where's the system broken? Well, if we're living in a selfish society, that means it's driven by selfish beliefs. Okay, then we're back to root cause of what we have to do is to flip the beliefs. Now, I wish the story had been that easy to tell along the way, but you kind of can't see it. And that's essentially what we've done within normative accounting and normative economics, actually to flip the beliefs to what you talk about, Paul, which is we're now going to start rewarding financially through accounting, doing the right thing. Yeah. That to me actually is like, wow, that's never happened before. Right. And it'll be like, people will go, can I do that? Am I allowed to do that? And you know, to my knowledge, and I have talked to people, this has never happened before in human history. So you go, wow, if that gets to adoption, that will be quite cool. Anyway, there's a long story with a lot of pieces to it, but they all begin and add to, and then when I realized how the whole thing clicked together, we were in a meeting in Copenhagen, Robert and I suddenly went click, 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 click. I went, oh my gosh, I left the room. He didn't know why I left the room. I just literally had to go and lie down. But suddenly it's like all these things just click together. There we go. There's a hopefully reasonably good answer to the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this complements very well the discussion that we had last time with Lance, where we were talking about all these different pathways. And we'd expect, because this is traditionally what is expected of us as individuals, to go on a linear path and start with A, move to B, move to C, move to D, and that is life, done, check. But that's never the case. Or when things are interesting, it's never the case. And we go on different pathways in life. We have several experiences, and the most interesting discoveries or innovation or creative output that we can have is when all these different elements come in together. And quite often they don't come together in the way we'd expect. And the beautiful thing is to go through the experiences of life with a certain level of awareness and observe the things that are happening through us and with us and around us, to kind of find those lessons that propel us forward and that can have a transformative power, especially cumulatively over time, because the more we're exposed to these moments and the more dots we connect, the bigger the network, the bigger the image that we will be able to build would be, which is why I'm obsessed with the question of connecting the dots, and I ask it every single time on the podcast.
It is the question, Alex. I would say that Robert and I both have something in common, though, which is the bigger the problem you're trying to solve, the longer it takes, the more perseverance you need, the more patience you need, but you never have. The more commitment you've got to put into it. It's funny. I mean, there is a question, Robert. You might want to answer this one actually. If you had time again, would you do it again? I won't do another one, that's for sure. I don't know, would you?
Of course, the answer is always no, you see. The answer is always no, because that's not how life works. You're right. It only makes sense looking back. And all of these unconnected things that you thought were failures in your life actually become the stepping stones to success. Yeah. And I mean, classic. I remember what people say to me, well, you were a geologist? I said, yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely key to my historical perspective. And geologists obviously look at history on a long frame, and I was a stratigrapher, so I was dealing with big floods and climate changes and colliding continents and things. And then I went to graduate school in economics, and very first day the professor said, well, I don't want to disturb class, but we're going to go back into ancient history, all the way back to the Greeks 2,500 years ago. And I thought, that's A, ancient history, and B, hardly a blink of an eye. And so geologists look for different things than normal historians. I remember I went to my international relations class, and they said political economy is the collision of markets and states. And I fell asleep in class. And then I went to my economics class, and they said, well, history doesn't matter, that there is no such thing as history. We're interested in supply and demand, how they interface, in the moment, because that's the only thing that matters. And so then I walked over to my economic history class, and they started to talk about feudalism and mercantilism and the commercial revolution. And I started to get very, very interested, because I could see as a geologist patterns that other people missed. And that's where this whole idea of the transitions socially were underpinned by an economic revolution. And at the very center of that was this new set of assets that were the storehouse of value. And as we changed the storehouse of value, changed its character, the whole of society revolved around it in different ways. So when we industrialized, we mechanized and centralized the production process in factories, and then we built cities around them and educational systems so that 80% of our young people were cogs in machines and 20% were management. And whole social orders were revolved around that way of generating value. And that's why I'm excited by where we are today, because the geologist in me can see that, you know, extrapolated future to the point where, yeah, we're going to change what's valuable, and that's going to change, as Andrew says, beliefs, behaviors, and decisions. And so you know, we've had this great partnership because we come at this whole area of intangibles from vastly different places, and you know, the integration of the ideas has been, you know, a fantastic, great experience for me. Wonderful, and I think we're now in a position. We boiled it down to really practical details, so we know how to implement. That's the fun bit is yet to come.
I think so too.